A November morning in Detroit greeted Derek Thompson with gray skies and a cold wind that seeped through the cracks in the window frames of their rented house on the east side. He sat at the kitchen table, studying the DoorDash app on his worn smartphone, planning his routes for the day. Next to him lay the utility bills: electricity, gas, water. The numbers seemed enormous against the backdrop of their meager budget. Working on your day off again? Clara entered the kitchen in an old robe, her hair pulled back in a messy bun. She was 31, but she looked older than her age. Working as a cashier at the supermarket and constantly worrying about money had taken its toll. "We need to catch the lunch rush," Derek replied, without looking up from his phone. "People order more on Saturdays." Clara poured herself some coffee from the old coffee maker, which had been making suspicious noises for several months. "Bruce called yesterday. He's offering to help with the electricity bill." Derek tensed. His younger brother Bruce always knew how to find work. Even when the auto plants were closing one after another, Bruce retrained as an air conditioning repairman. In Detroit, where summers were getting hotter and older cooling systems in homes were constantly breaking down, it turned out to be a gold mine. 29 years old, and already driving a brand new pickup truck and renting a decent apartment in the suburbs. "We don't need his help," Derek gritted his teeth. "We can manage on our own." "Derek, the electricity bill is $320. We can barely afford the rent." Derek knew she was right. After being laid off from General Motors 2 years ago, he had tried dozens of jobs. Security guard at a shopping mall, laid off due to downsizing. Warehouse loader, the company went bankrupt. Salesman at an auto parts store. He couldn't work on commission. There weren't enough customers. DoorDash was both a blessing and a curse. It was work, but it was unstable. On good days, he could make $150 in 12 hours. On bad days, barely 50. Detroit was changing around them. Old neighborhoods were emptying out. Houses were being sold for next to nothing or simply abandoned. Trendy cafes and startup offices were popping up on the main streets. But for people like Derek, these changes meant nothing. The new jobs required education and skills he didn't have, and retraining at 34, with a family to support, seemed impossible. "You know what he said?" Clara sat down opposite her husband. "That his company is expanding. They're looking for people to install air conditioning systems. You could start as an assistant and gradually learn the business." "Work for my little brother?" Derek looked up from his phone. "Thanks, but no thanks. It's not working for him. It's a normal job with a normal salary." "You don't understand." Derek stood up and walked over to the window. Across the street stood an abandoned house, its windows boarded up with plywood, its yard overgrown with weeds. "I've been the older brother my whole life. I taught him to ride a bike, protected him from bullies at school. And now what? He has to save me?" Derek's voice betrayed the pain he was trying to hide even from himself. He used to be proud of his job at the factory. Good pay, benefits, security for the future. He and Clara had planned to buy a house and have children. Now those plans seemed like naive dreams. Clara sighed. For the past 2 years, she had watched her husband slowly break down. His pride prevented him from accepting help, but it was becoming increasingly difficult for him to cope on his own. Their marriage, once strong and full of hope, was beginning to crack under the pressure of constant stress. "I need to go to work," she said, heading for the kitchen door. "Clara?" Derek turned around. "I'll find something better. I promise." She stopped at the door without turning around. "I know you will." But there was no confidence in her voice. After his wife left, Derek finished his cold coffee and got ready for work. A red DoorDash thermal bag, old sneakers, keys to a used 2007 Honda Civic with over 200,000 miles on it. The car was their only asset, and every strange noise under the hood made his heart sink with fear. On his way to the car, Derek drove past the closed General Motors factory where he used to work. The huge building stood empty, the windows smashed, the grounds overgrown with grass. Local authorities talked about plans for reconstruction and attracting new investors, but years passed and nothing changed. Like thousands of other former factory workers, Derek was left without a job, without prospects, with a vague feeling that the world had changed and he had not had time to adapt. There were few orders that morning. Derek delivered breakfast to office buildings in downtown, where young professionals from IT companies and financial firms ordered expensive coffee and sandwiches. These people were his age or younger, but they lived in a different universe. They earned more in a month than he did in 6 months, and they didn't even think about it. By lunchtime, Derek had earned $42. Not bad for a Saturday morning, but far from a normal day's earnings. He stopped at a gas station, bought a cheap sandwich and soda, got in his car, and planned to take a short break. Just then, Bruce called. "Hey, big bro." His younger brother's voice sounded cheerful. "How's it going?" "Working," Derek replied curtly. "Listen, I'm serious about that job. The boss is willing to take you on a trial basis. The pay isn't great at first, but after 6 months when you get the hang of it." "Bruce, don't." "Don't what? Help my brother?" "Dare, we're family. If I can help, why not help?" Derek closed his eyes. "Because it's wrong." "What's wrong with making good money? You have a wife, you're planning to have children." "We're not planning on having children," Derek said sharply. "With our income, it would be irresponsible." There was silence on the other end of the line. Then Bruce said quietly, "I'm sorry, I didn't know." After talking to his brother, Derek sat in his car for a long time, watching the traffic on the street. Each one carried people who had jobs, plans, futures. What did he have? A red food delivery bag and pride that prevented him from accepting help from his younger brother. The December evening found Derek behind the wheel of his beat-up Honda as he completed his last delivery of the day. It was 7:30, and he had been on his feet since 7 in the morning. The DoorDash cooler bag lay on the back seat, empty after 13 deliveries. $108 for the day wasn't bad, but it was barely enough to cover his current expenses, let alone his accumulated debts. The house greeted him with silence. Clara was sitting at the kitchen table with a calculator and a stack of bills. Her face was tense, a deep wrinkle between her eyebrows. "How was your day?" she asked without looking up. "108. How about you?" "We got a notice from the electric company. If we don't pay by the 15th, they'll cut off the power." Derek took off his jacket and hung it on the back of a chair. "How much is it?" $420 plus penalties. Clara finally looked up. "Dare, we need to talk to Bruce." "No. We can't go on living like this." Clara's voice trembled. "I work 10 hours a day, you're gone from morning till night, and we still don't have enough money. Yesterday my card was declined at the store. I had to leave the groceries at the checkout." Derek felt something tighten in his chest. "I'll find a way to earn more. Maybe I'll get another delivery job." "When will you sleep? When will we see each other? We hardly talk now." It was true, and they both knew it. For the past few weeks, Derek had been leaving early in the morning and coming home late at night, exhausted and irritable. Clara was also working more, taking on extra shifts at the supermarket in an attempt to improve their financial situation. Their conversations had been reduced to discussing bills and work schedules. That evening, they had another argument. Clara insisted on accepting Bruce's help, at least temporarily. Derek refused. The argument ended with Clara going to the bedroom and Derek staying in the kitchen, staring out the window at the snow-covered street. The next morning, the atmosphere in the house was frosty. They ate breakfast in silence, avoiding looking at each other. Derek left for work earlier than usual without saying goodbye. He began to work even more. 16 hours a day became the norm. Derek took orders from early morning until late at night, trying to earn every extra dollar he could. He studied all areas of Detroit, knew where to get the best orders at different times of the day, and learned to plan his routes as efficiently as possible. But the more he worked, the further Clara drifted away from him. She stopped asking about his daily earnings and stopped cooking dinner for two. In the evenings, when he came home, she was either already asleep or sitting in the living room with her phone. It was the phone that was the first warning sign. Clara had rarely used her smartphone before, except for calls and messages from work. Now she was constantly typing something, reading messages, and when Derek entered the room, she quickly put her phone away. "Who was that?" he asked one evening, noticing that Clara had hurriedly hung up. "No one important, just an advertisement." But her voice sounded uncertain. In mid-December, Bruce reappeared in their lives. He arrived on a Saturday evening with a bag of groceries and an envelope of money. "Don't start," he said to Derek, who had already opened his mouth to protest. "This isn't help. This is family." "Bruce, we're grateful, but," Clara began. "No buts." Bruce put the bags on the kitchen table. "Dare, you're my older brother. You taught me everything I know. Now it's my turn to help." Derek watched silently as Bruce took expensive groceries out of the bags: meat, fruit, good pasta, things they hadn't been able to afford for several months. "Besides," Bruce continued, "the job offer is still on the table. The boss is willing to wait." I said no. "Dare." Clara put her hand on her husband's shoulder. "Maybe you should think about it." Derek turned sharply to her. "Are you against me too?" "I'm not against you. I'm for us. For our family." "What family?" Derek looked at them both. "A family where the younger brother feeds the older one? Where the wife doesn't trust her husband?" Bruce raised his hands in a conciliatory gesture. "Hey, I don't want any arguments. I just want to help. Your help humiliates me." "Derek!" Clara was shocked by her husband's rudeness. Bruce was silent for a moment, then said quietly, "Okay, I understand." He headed for the door. "Clara, if you need anything." "Thank you, Bruce," she said, walking him to the door. After her brother left, the couple had their most serious argument in a long time. Clara accused Derek of valuing his pride more than his family's well-being. Derek shouted that she didn't understand what it was like to feel like a failure in his own home. "Do you think it's easy for me?" Clara yelled. "Do you think I like counting every dollar, asking the cashier to hold off on the groceries, lying to my friends that everything is fine? Then why did you marry me?" Derek was beside himself with rage. "If I'm such a failure?" Clara fell silent. A long, heavy silence hung between them. Then she said quietly, "I don't know." Those words hurt Derek's heart more than any shouting ever had. He left the house and didn't return until late at night. In the days that followed, the atmosphere in the house became even more tense. Clara received more and more calls and messages that made her nervous. Derek noticed that she had set up a password on her phone, something she had never done before. "You have a password on your phone," he said one morning at breakfast. "Yes, I set it up for security." "From whom?" "From thieves, if it gets stolen." But Derek wasn't stupid. He saw her hide the screen when she typed messages. He saw her face change when notifications came in. He saw her stay late after work more often, citing extra shifts. One evening, when Derek came home earlier than usual because his car had broken down, he found Clara talking on the phone. She was sitting in the living room with her back to the door and didn't hear him come in. "No, he's still at work," she said quietly. "Yes, I miss him too, but it's not possible right now." Hearing footsteps, Clara quickly turned around and hung up the phone. "Who was that?" Derek asked. "Mom," she replied, not looking him in the eye. But he knew her mother's voice, and it wasn't her. That night, Derek lay awake, listening to his wife's breathing next to him. He thought about how their lives had changed over the past 2 years. Once they had been a happy couple with plans for the future. Now they had become strangers living in the same house. Clara couldn't sleep either. She lay with her back to her husband, thinking about the man who had been calling her more and more often. about what had started as friendly support during a difficult time, but had gradually turned into something more, about how she could no longer stop. The next day, Derek worked especially hard, taking order after order, trying to drown out his suspicions and pain. He thought about Bruce, who had everything, a job, money, respect. About himself, who had lost everything, including his own wife's trust. About how he used to be the one who protected and provided, and now he was the one who needed help. By evening, he had earned $130, a good day. But when he got home, Clara was gone. There was a note on the kitchen table. Running late at work, dinner is in the fridge. Derek heated up his dinner and ate alone, staring at the empty chair across from him. He knew their marriage was falling apart, but he didn't know how to stop it. His pride prevented him from accepting help from his brother, and his lack of money was destroying everything else. Clara came home at 10:30. She said she had been at work, but she didn't smell like the supermarket. She smelled like someone else's perfume. It was a frosty January morning, even for Detroit. The thermometer read -15 degrees Fahrenheit, and the wind made it feel even colder. Derek woke up at 6 in the morning, as he had every day for the past few weeks. Clara was still asleep, turned away toward the wall. For a month now, they had been sleeping on opposite sides of the bed, trying not to touch each other. In the kitchen, he was greeted by the usual morning routine: his phone with the DoorDash app, a thermal bag, and his car keys. Outside the window, he could see the snow-covered roofs of houses, most of which were in need of repair. Their own house also needed attention. The bathroom roof was leaking, the floorboards were creaking, and the heating was intermittent. Derek brewed strong coffee and checked the order forecast in the app. Friday promised to be a good day. People were ordering lunches to their offices, and students were requesting deliveries to their dorms. If he worked hard, he could earn $150. "Are you up already?" Clara walked into the kitchen in her old robe. She looked tired, with dark circles under her eyes. "I want to catch the morning rush," Derek replied, without looking up from his phone. "People are ordering breakfast." Clara silently poured herself some coffee. In recent weeks, their conversations had been reduced to a minimum, discussing schedules, bills, everyday issues. They no longer talked about feelings, plans, or the future. "Today is Friday," she said. "Maybe tonight." "What about tonight?" "Well, let's talk. Have a normal conversation, like before." Derek looked up at his wife. For a moment, he thought he saw in her face the Clara he had fallen in love with 7 years ago. Young, full of hope, believing in their future together. "Okay," he said. "I'll try to get back early. I'll make dinner. Your favorite. Spaghetti with meatballs?" "Yes." Clara almost smiled. "Like in the first year of our marriage." Derek finished his coffee and got ready to leave. At the door, he stopped and turned to Clara. "Clara?" "Yes?" "We'll manage. We'll get through this somehow." She nodded, but he couldn't see her face anymore. Derek spent the first half hour in his car, waiting for the interior to warm up. The old Honda didn't handle the cold well, the engine didn't start right away, and the heater only worked at maximum speed. He thought about his conversation with his wife, about her suggestion to have dinner together. Maybe they really could work things out. The first order came in at 7:30 a.m., breakfast from McDonald's to an office building in the city center. Derek picked up the order and set off through the snow-covered streets of Detroit. The city was waking up slowly. The few pedestrians hurried to bus stops. Cafes were just turning on their signs. By noon, he had made 8 deliveries and earned $73. Not a bad pace for a winter day. Derek stopped at a gas station and bought a sandwich and hot coffee. Sitting in his car, he thought about what to say to Clara that evening. How could he explain that his pride was not a whim, but the last thing he had left? How could he say that working as a courier humiliated him every day, but he was willing to endure it for the sake of his family? His phone rang. A new order. Derek finished his coffee and hit the road again. Meanwhile, at home, Clara was pacing nervously around the kitchen with her phone in her hands. She had been waiting for his call for 2 hours. Yesterday, they had agreed that he would call her today at 11:30 when he had a break at work. But time passed, and there was no call. Clara had met this man a month ago at the supermarket where she worked. He had come shopping with his young daughter, who was being fussy, and he stood confused in the baby food section, not knowing what to choose. Clara helped him figure out the products, and they started talking. It turned out that he had recently divorced and worked as an engineer at one of the few companies still operating in Detroit. At first, it was just friendship. He would come to the store, and they would chat during her lunch break. He talked about his work and his daughter, who lived with him on weekends. She talked about her problems and how difficult life had been lately. He listened attentively, didn't judge, and gave advice. Then he asked for her phone number. He said he wanted to invite her for coffee, just to talk. Clara knew it was wrong, but she agreed. She was so desperate for understanding, support, and someone to listen to her. They met 3 times. They drank coffee in a small cafe on the other side of town, where no one knew them. They talked about life, dreams, disappointments. He was attentive, caring, interested in her opinion. With him, she felt like a woman, not just a function in a crumbling family. Yesterday, he said he was ready to offer her more than friendship. He said he had fallen in love with her and wanted to be with her. He asked her to think about it. Clara spent a sleepless night pondering the offer. She knew she was standing on the edge of a precipice. One step, and there would be no turning back. But life with Derek had become unbearable. Constant arguments, lack of money, his pride, which prevented him from accepting help from Bruce. She was tired of fighting for a marriage in which she was the only one trying to save something. The phone rang. Clara jumped and quickly answered it. "Hi," she heard a familiar voice say. "Sorry I couldn't call earlier. It's been crazy at work." "It's okay," Clara said, feeling her heartbeat quicken. "I was waiting. Have you thought about what we discussed yesterday?" Clara closed her eyes. "Yes." "And?" "I need time. It's not that simple." "I understand. But Clara, life is short. We both deserve happiness." "I know. Just give me a little more time." "Of course. But remember, I'm willing to wait, but not forever. I have a job offer in another state. If you decide to stay with your husband, I may agree to move." After the conversation, Clara sat in the kitchen for a long time, staring out the window. She knew she had to make a decision. Soon. At 2:30, Bruce's pickup truck pulled up to the house. He came once a week, usually without warning, and each time brought something she needed: groceries, money for bills, small gifts for Clara. It annoyed Derek, but he tried to restrain himself for his wife's sake. "Hi, sister-in-law." Bruce kissed Clara on the cheek and went into the kitchen. "How are you? Where's Derek?" "At work, as usual." Bruce put a bag of groceries and an envelope on the table. "A little help with the electricity, and I bought some good meat. I think you'll make borscht." "Bruce, you help so much." "Derek." "Derek's a proud fool." Bruce sat down on a chair. "But he's my brother, and I won't let you go under." Clara smiled gratefully. "Want some coffee?" "I won't say no." They sat in the kitchen, drinking coffee and talking about everyday things. Bruce talked about work and plans to expand the business. Clara listened and thought about the gap between Bruce's life and their existence. "Clara." Bruce suddenly became serious. "Are you okay? You look tired." "I'm fine," she lied. "I'm just working a lot. If anything happens, if you need help, call me. Anytime." "Thanks, Bruce." He left after half an hour, promising to come back next week. Clara put the groceries in the refrigerator and started making dinner. Spaghetti with meatballs, Derek's favorite dish. Maybe tonight would change something? At 6:30, Derek finished his last delivery of the day. $143, an excellent result. He was in a good mood, looking forward to dinner at home and a chat with his wife. On the way home, he even stopped at a flower shop and bought a small bouquet of roses. It was expensive, but today he could afford it. As he approached his house, Derek noticed that he had left his phone in the car. He parked, grabbed his phone, and headed for the front door. At that moment, a message notification flashed on the screen. Derek automatically glanced at the screen and froze. The message wasn't for him. Somehow, a message intended for Clara had appeared on his phone. Apparently, she had logged into her account from his phone at some point, and the settings had synced. "I'll wait for you tomorrow at the usual place. I love you. Mark." Derek reread the message several times, not believing his eyes. The bouquet of roses fell from his hands onto the snow-covered path. He stood in the cold, holding his phone, and felt something break inside him. All his suspicions of the past few weeks had been confirmed. The mysterious phone calls, the delays at work, the password on her phone, the alienation. It all came together to form a terrible picture. Derek slowly picked up the bouquet and walked toward the house. The lights were on in the windows, and Clara's shadow moved in the kitchen. She was cooking dinner, waiting for him, planning to talk things over. And at the same time, she was going to meet her lover tomorrow. He entered the house. It smelled of spaghetti and tomato sauce. Clara turned around, saw the flowers, and smiled uncertainly. "Derek, did you bring flowers?" "Yes," he said, handing her the bouquet. His voice sounded normal, but inside he was boiling. "I thought it's a special evening." "Thank you." Clara took the flowers and smelled them. "They're beautiful. Dinner's almost ready." Derek sat down at the table, watching his wife put the flowers in a vase, watching her set the table carefully, watching her smile, trying to create the appearance of normality. And tomorrow she would meet Mark at the usual place. "How was your day?" Clara asked, dividing the spaghetti between the plates. "Fine." Derek tried to control his voice. "Made good money." "That's great." They began to eat. Clara tried to keep the conversation going, talking about her day at work and her plans for the weekend. Derek answered in monosyllables. Every word she said seemed like a lie. "Derek, are you okay?" Clara finally asked. "You seem distant." "I'm fine. Just tired." "You wanted to talk tonight. About us." Derek looked up at his wife. She looked concerned, sincerely wanting to fix their relationship. But he knew the truth. He knew about Mark, about the meetings, about how she would cheat on him again tomorrow. "Yes," he said. "I wanted to talk." Saturday, January 21st, 11:30 in the morning. Derek sat in his car near the office building on Jefferson Avenue, having finished his morning breakfast deliveries. He had earned $80 for 4 hours of work, but money didn't matter now. The same thoughts kept running through his head. Clara is seeing Mark. Clara is cheating on him. Clara is planning to leave him. He hadn't slept all night, lying next to his wife and listening to her calm breathing. How could she sleep so peacefully, knowing she was going to her lover tomorrow? How could she be so cold-blooded? In the morning, Clara acted as usual. She ate breakfast, got ready for work, and even kissed him on the cheek before leaving. "Have a good day," she said. Derek barely managed to keep himself from shouting the truth in her face. But then, while at work, he began to piece things together. Clara said she was working until 6 in the evening, but on Saturdays, the supermarket closes at 5. That meant she was going to him after work. To Mark. At 11:30, Derek couldn't take it anymore. He declined the next order on the DoorDash app and drove to the supermarket where Clara worked. He had to make sure. He parked across the street from the entrance and waited. At 12:15, Clara came out of the building, but she wasn't alone. Walking beside her was a man in his mid-30s, wearing a nice winter coat and business shoes. They were talking about something, and Derek saw Clara smile at him in a way she hadn't smiled at her husband in a long time. Mark. Derek started the car and followed at a safe distance. They went into a small cafe called Bean and Leaf, 3 blocks from the supermarket. Derek parked across the street and watched through the window. Clara and Mark sat at a table by the wall, close to each other. Mark held her hand. Clara laughed at his jokes. Derek gripped the steering wheel so tightly that his knuckles turned white. 7 years of marriage. For 7 years, he had given this woman everything he had. And she was laughing with another man in the cafe that had become their regular spot. At 1:20, Clara and Mark left the cafe. Derek saw Mark hug her goodbye, kiss her on the lips. Clara didn't resist. That was it. Enough. Derek started the car and sped home. Rage filled him completely, leaving no room for rational thought. The only thing he felt was betrayal, humiliation, pain that turned into blind rage. He got home in 15 minutes, breaking several traffic rules. He ran into the house, slamming the door so hard that the windows rattled. Clara wasn't home yet. She wouldn't be back from work until 6. Derek paced around the house like a caged animal. In the bedroom, he saw her makeup on the dressing table, the perfume she used for her meetings with Mark. In the closet hung a new blouse he hadn't seen before. What did she buy it with? With the money he earned delivering food around the city? In the living room, his gaze fell on a wedding photo on the shelf. Young, happy, full of hope. Derek grabbed the frame and threw it against the wall. The glass shattered into tiny pieces. At 5:45, he heard the sound of a key in the lock. Clara was back. "Derek, are you home?" she called from the hallway. "Finished early today?" Derek stood in the living room with his back to the entrance. Clara walked into the room and saw the glass shards on the floor. What happened? Did the frame fall? Derek slowly turned around. Clara saw the expression on his face and took a step back. "Dare, are you okay?" "Where were you?" Derek's voice was quiet, but there was a threat in it. "At work. You know that." "Don't lie to me." "I'm not lying. I saw you." Derek took a step toward his wife. "I saw you hugging him in the cafe. I saw you kissing him." Clara turned pale. "Derek, how long has this been going on?" He moved closer. "How long have you been leading me on?" "I can explain." "Explain?" Derek was already a meter away from her. "Explain that you're a whore? That while I'm working my ass off, you're having fun with your lover?" "Don't call me that." Clara tried to walk past her husband, but he blocked her way. "What should I call you? A faithful wife?" Derek grabbed her by the shoulders. "Did you think I wouldn't find out? Did you think I was blind? Let me go. 7 years. I've been with you for 7 years. I lost my job. I humiliated myself, but I thought I had a family. I have a wife who supports me. Derek, you're hurting me." But he didn't hear her. Rage clouded his eyes. All the accumulated humiliation, all the pain from losing his job, from the rejections, from having to ask his younger brother for help. It all came crashing down on Clara. "And what were you doing? Looking for a new man, richer, more successful." "That's not true." "Not true?" Derek shook her. "Then what? Love? Did you fall in love with this Mark?" When her lover's name was mentioned, Clara realized that denial was useless. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes, I love him." These words hit Derek harder than physical pain. The wife for whom he was willing to do anything calmly admitted that she loved another man. "Then why didn't you leave? Why did you lie?" "I didn't know how to tell you I didn't want to hurt you." "Hurt me?" Derek laughed bitterly. "And now it doesn't hurt? To find out that my wife is a prostitute?" "Stop it!" Clara pushed her husband away. "I'm not a prostitute. I can't live like this anymore. In constant fear, in need. Mark offers me a different life." "And you agreed?" "Yes. I'm leaving you." Silence. Derek stood there, unable to believe what he had heard. Then something snapped in his mind. "No," he said quietly. "You're not leaving." "Derek, If I can't have you, then no one can. He lunged at his wife. Clara tried to run away, but Derek was stronger. They fought in the living room, knocking over furniture. Clara screamed, begged for help, but the neighbors weren't home. Derek grabbed a heavy candlestick from the shelf. Clara saw his movement and tried to cover herself with her hands. "No! Derek, please!" But it was too late. The blow struck her temple. Clara fell to the floor and didn't move. Derek stood over his wife's body, breathing heavily. The candlestick fell from his hands. A pool of blood spread across the floor. What had he done? At that moment, Bruce entered the house. He had a spare key and often visited his brother unannounced. "Derek, are you home?" "I wanted to." Bruce stopped in the living room doorway. He saw Clara on the floor, the blood, the trashed room. What's going on?" he whispered. Derek looked up at his brother. "Bruce, I didn't mean to. She wanted to leave me." Bruce rushed to Clara and tried to find her pulse. Nothing. He took out his phone and dialed 911. "I need the police and an ambulance," he said in a trembling voice. "Someone's been killed." Derek sank down onto the sofa, staring at a single point. "I didn't mean to kill her. It's just she said she loved someone else." The police arrived 8 minutes later. Patrol officers Jenkins and McCarthy were the first to arrive. They cordoned off the crime scene and called for detectives. Detective Lisa Rodriguez and her partner, Detective James Cole, arrived half an hour later. Rodriguez had been working in the homicide division for 15 years and had seen a lot, but family tragedies were always the hardest for her. "What do we have here?" she asked Patrolman Jenkins. "Clara Thompson, 31 years old, killed with a blunt object. Her husband, Derek Thompson, is in shock and has confessed to the murder. The witness is Bruce Thompson, the suspect's brother. He found the body and called the police." Rodriguez examined the crime scene. The living room was ransacked, signs of a struggle evident. The victim lay against the far wall, a heavy brass candlestick covered in blood beside her. "Where's the suspect?" "In the kitchen. Cole is talking to him." Detective Cole was an experienced investigator who knew how to approach any suspect. Derek sat at the kitchen table, staring into space. "Derek, I'm Detective Cole. Can you tell me what happened?" "She said she loved someone else," Derek replied monotonously. 7 years of marriage, and she loves someone else." "And what did you do?" I don't remember exactly. We had an argument. I was very angry. Then she fell, and there was blood." Cole wrote down every word. Derek's speech was disjointed, but the meaning was clear. Jealousy, an argument, murder in the heat of passion. Meanwhile, Rodriguez was talking to Bruce in the yard. "Tell me what you saw when you arrived." Bruce was shaking from the cold and stress. "I went into the house. I have a key. I saw Derek in the living room and Clara was lying on the floor. There was blood everywhere." "Did Derek say anything?" "That he didn't want to kill her, that she wanted to leave him." "Did you know about problems in their marriage?" Bruce nodded. They had been fighting a lot in recent months. Derek lost his job. They didn't have enough money. I tried to help, but he refused. Forensic investigators worked at the crime scene, photographing evidence, collecting blood samples, and taking fingerprints. The picture was clear. The murder was the result of a domestic dispute. The murder weapon had been found, and there were confessions from the suspect and testimony from a witness. By evening, Derek had been arrested and taken to the station for questioning. Bruce stayed near the house, unable to believe what had happened. His older brother, whom he had loved and respected all his life, had become a murderer. Sunday, January 22nd, Detroit Police Station, 8:30 in the morning. Detective Lisa Rodriguez sat in her office with a cup of coffee, studying the Thompson case file. On Saturday evening, she and Cole had conducted a preliminary interview with Derek, but the man was in deep shock and spoke incoherently. Now they needed to piece together an accurate picture of events. "Good morning, Lisa." Detective Cole entered the office with a folder of documents. "The forensic report is ready." "What do we have?" Cole opened the folder. Derek Thompson's fingerprints are on the murder weapon, the candlestick. Traces of the victim's blood are on his clothes. No signs of forced entry. Time of death is estimated between 3:15 and 4 p.m. What about the phones? An interesting detail. Messages intended for Clara were found on Derek's phone. Apparently, she logged into her account from his device at some point. The last message came on Friday evening from a Mark Anderson. "See you tomorrow at the usual place. I love you." Rodriguez nodded. So the motive is jealousy. Derek found out about the affair and couldn't handle it. Looks like it. I've already found this Mark Anderson. He's an engineer at Detroit Development, divorced, 36 years old. He's been seeing Clara for the past month and a half. We need to talk to him. What about Bruce? He's waiting in the witness room, ready to give a detailed statement. Rodriguez finished her coffee. Let's start with him. Bruce Thompson sat in the small witness interview room, nervously clutching a glass of water. He hadn't slept all night, constantly replaying the horrific scene at his brother's house in his head. 30 years of living with Derek, and he never thought his older brother was capable of such a thing. "Mr. Thompson," Detective Rodriguez sat down across from him. "Thank you for agreeing to assist with the investigation. Please tell us in detail about your relationship with your brother." Bruce took a deep breath. "Derek was always a role model for me. When our parents died in a car accident 10 years ago, he took responsibility for the family, even though he was still young himself. He helped me finish my studies and find a job." "How has your relationship changed recently?" "When Derek lost his job at the car factory, everything went downhill. He became irritable and withdrawn. He refused to accept my help, even though I was willing to support him financially." Rodriguez took notes. "Did you know about the problems in his marriage?" "Yes. Derek and Clara had been fighting constantly for the last few months, mostly about money. I could see how it was wearing him down. He felt like a failure, and when I offered to help, he took it as an insult." "Tell me about yesterday. Why did you go to your brother's house?" Bruce took a sip of water, gathering his thoughts. "I visit them every week, bring groceries, help with utility bills. I usually give them advance notice, but yesterday I decided to drop by spontaneously. I had the day off and just wanted to talk to my brother." "What time did you arrive?" "Around 5:30 p.m. I parked outside the house and saw that the lights were on. I went to the door, and it wasn't locked. I went in and called out to my brother." Rodriguez listened intently. "What did you see?" "The living room was trashed. The furniture was overturned, and there were broken pieces on the floor. And then I saw Clara." Bruce paused, trying to control his emotions. She was lying against the far wall in a pool of blood. Derek was standing next to her, just staring at her. "What did he say?" "That he didn't mean to kill her, that she said she loved someone else." Derek was in shock, talking incoherently. "I realized Clara was dead and called the police right away." "Did you know about Clara's affair?" Bruce shook his head. "No, I had no idea. If I had known, I would have tried to talk to both of them. Maybe this tragedy wouldn't have happened." After talking to Bruce, the detectives went to talk to Mark Anderson. He lived in a decent neighborhood in Detroit, in a rented apartment in a new building. The man was waiting for them in a state of extreme agitation. News of Clara's murder had already reached him through mutual acquaintances. "Detective Rodriguez, Detective Cole," they introduced themselves. "We need to talk to you about Clara Thompson." Mark led them into the living room. He was an attractive, middle-aged man, well-dressed, with the confident manner of a successful professional. "I can't believe she's dead," he said, sinking into a chair. "This is a nightmare. Tell us about your relationship with Mrs. Thompson." Mark took a deep breath. "We met a month and a half ago at the supermarket where she worked. I recently got divorced and am raising a daughter. Clara helped me with my shopping and we started talking." "And then the affair began?" "Not right away. At first, We were just friends. Clara told me about her marital problems and financial difficulties. I understood her situation. I had been through a divorce myself. Cole wrote down the testimony. When did the relationship become intimate? 3 weeks ago. Clara said she couldn't live with her husband anymore. They were constantly arguing, and he refused to accept help from relatives because of his pride. She felt trapped. Did you plan to be together? Yes. I suggested that Clara move in with me. I have a good job and a stable income. I could provide her with a normal life. Rodriguez studied Mark's expression. The man spoke sincerely. It was clear that he was genuinely grieving Clara's death. When was the last time you saw Mrs. Thompson? Yesterday at lunchtime. We met at our usual cafe. Clara said she was ready to make a decision, but asked for a little more time to talk to her husband properly. Did she mention that her husband might be dangerous? No. She said he was quick-tempered and proud, but not aggressive. Clara was more afraid of his emotional reaction than physical violence. After talking to Mark, the detectives returned to the station for Derek's main interrogation. The man had spent the night in a holding cell and looked exhausted. The shock of what he had done was beginning to wear off, giving way to the realization of what had happened. Derek, do you understand what you are accused of? Rodriguez asked. The murder of my wife, he replied quietly. Tell us again what happened yesterday. Derek closed his eyes, gathering his strength. I was working, delivering orders. On Friday evening, I happened to see a message on my phone. It was for Clara, from someone named Mark. He wrote that he loved her and was waiting to meet her. How did you feel? At first, I didn't believe it. I thought it was a mistake. But then I remembered all the strange things that had happened in recent weeks. The phone calls, the delays at work, her aloofness. It all made sense. And what did you do? In the morning, I drove to the supermarket where she worked. I saw her meeting with this man. They were hugging, kissing 7 years of marriage. And she... Derek paused. Cole waited a moment, then continued the questioning. What happened next? I went home and waited for her. When Clara came back, I asked her where she had been. She lied and said she had been at work. Then I told her I had seen her with her lover. How did she react? At first she denied it. Then she realized it was useless. She admitted that she loved him and was going to leave me. Rodriguez listened intently. And then you hit her? I didn't plan it. I just exploded. All the anger, resentment, humiliation, it all came crashing down at once. I grabbed a candlestick and... Derek couldn't finish the sentence. Do you understand that you killed your wife? Yes, and I will regret it for the rest of my life. Cole leaned back in his chair. Derek, are you ready to give your official statement and sign the confession? Yes. I don't want to hide the truth. The next 2 hours were spent drawing up the official confession. Derek described in detail the events that led to the tragedy and took full responsibility for his actions. The lawyer appointed to him by the state advised him to claim temporary insanity, but Derek refused. I knew what I was doing, he said. I just couldn't stop myself. By Sunday evening, all the formalities had been completed. Derek Thompson was officially arrested on charges of first-degree murder. He was transferred to the county jail to await trial. Bruce waited outside the courthouse as his brother was led away in handcuffs. Their eyes met for a moment. Derek looked broken, but there was no anger or excuses in his eyes, only deep remorse. I'm sorry, Derek said silently. Bruce nodded, unable to speak. 6 months passed. Summer in Detroit greeted the city with heat and humidity. Bruce Thompson sat on a bench in the city park, watching the children play. In his hands, he held a letter from his brother in prison. Derek had been sentenced to 25 years without parole. In the letter, he asked for forgiveness and said he was using his time in prison to reflect on what he had done. Bruce sold the house where the tragedy had occurred. He couldn't stay there any longer. The money from the sale went to pay for his brother's legal fees and a memorial for Clara. Her parents, who had come from another state, buried her. They didn't want to see Bruce, believing the entire Thompson family to be responsible for their daughter's death. Mark Anderson accepted a transfer to another state and left Detroit a month after Clara's funeral. At the trial, he testified as a witness, talking about their relationship. His face expressed sincere grief and guilt for not being able to protect the woman he loved. Bruce continued to work and develop his business, but there was less joy in his life. Every week he visited his brother in prison. They talked about the past, about their childhood, about their parents. Derek asked him to give money to Clara's family, but they refused to accept anything from their daughter's killer. Detectives Rodriguez and Cole closed the case as one of the clearest examples of a crime of passion. But for them, as for everyone else involved in this story, it served as a reminder of how quickly an ordinary family can be turned into a group of broken lives. Life went on in Detroit. The city was slowly recovering from the economic crisis, new jobs were appearing, and houses were being built. But for some families, time stood still on that January day when love turned to hate and jealousy turned to tragedy.